Have you maintained contact with some of the men that fought with you?
No,
No?
no. I never kept track of anybody. I don't know why, but I didn't make that close of friends. But, I had some buddies I went to college with that were over there too, so I kept in touch with them. But they were not in the same battalion as I was. They were in another one.
And what did you come home to do? What profession did you focus on?
Well, we thought it would be exciting if we went to Florida.
Oh,
So we loaded everything we had into our Pontiac and headed for Florida. And just the two of us. We had a dog. And I remember stopping in Biloxi, Mississippi, and spending a night. And went to breakfast the next morning and ordered bacon and eggs and toast. And the waitress brought me this plate with bacon, eggs, and toast and this big glob of white stuff. And I said, I didn't order that. Why, she says, them's grits. They comes with the whole of breakfast. And I thought, I bet she said, you dumb Yankee, you don't even know what grits are.
why Florida?
I don't know, it sounded like the fun.
So where did you decide to settle in Florida?
Huh?
Where did you go in Florida?
We went to Jacksonville.
Jacksonville.
And I got a job there with an insurance company, which is part of General Motors. They have GMAC and MIC. MIC is the insurance company, and I worked for them. I worked in the office there for a year, and they sent me to adjuster school in Flint, Michigan. And I was top of my class. I was a college graduate, and most of them weren't, so it was pretty easy for me. And then I became a field adjuster. So I worked out of the Jacksonville branch for several months, and they moved us up to Waycross, Georgia, which is close to the Florida line, right near the Okefenokee Swamp. And I was a field adjuster there, and I worked about a 50-mile radius territory there in southern Georgia. So we got accustomed to the Georgia life. It was wonderful. They're very courteous and friendly people. You'd go to church and the young kids would come up to you and shake your hand and say, "Good morning, Mr. Hansen." It was, "Yes, ma'am," "Yes, sir, Mr. Hansen, Mrs. Hansen." So it was a nice thing. The thing we didn't like was the racial tensions that were building, because that was 1954, and things were getting really hot. And you'd go into a store, white bathrooms, black bathrooms, white water fountain, black water fountain. And that was so foreign to me because I had served with black people in the service, and there was no separation there of anything. But I met people that were very, very racially prejudiced. I was even asked once to join the Ku Klux Klan. And I thought to myself, maybe it's time we move back north. So we'd been down there 3 years, and I decided to go into teaching, because that's what my college degree was, teaching agriculture. So I started looking, I resigned from my job, and I started looking for a job back in Iowa. And I wrote to my college professor, my advisor from college, and he said, "Well, we have a surplus of teachers now. There's about 15 applicants for jobs." Whoa. Well, there was a few openings, so I applied, but I'm 2,000 miles away or 1,500 miles away. I couldn't interview or anything. But my professor called me back. He said he'd been up to Minnesota and visited with a superintendent that they needed an agriculture teacher. So his recommendation for me was very highly respected because he was very well respected as a college professor, and he had been a high school teacher. So I applied and got hired over the phone. So we headed. In 1954, we loaded up our car and our belongings and headed for Dodge Center, Minnesota, a little town in southern Minnesota, about 1,500 people, a farming community. And I started to teach agriculture there.
How long did you stay there?
We stayed there for 9 years.
Okay.
Donna was choir director and president of the PTA, and I was involved with the Chamber of Commerce and doing all the stuff with students, going to all the fairs with the students and their projects. And we did that for 9 years, and I realized I was just one step from the top of the salary schedule. You know, the salary schedule went up only 10 years. And we went down to Ames, Iowa to visit Donna's parents. And I was over Thanksgiving, and I thought, I'm going to go out to talk to my professor. And so I went out to talk to him, and I said I was thinking about maybe I should come back and get a master's degree, because I knew if you got a master's degree in 1966, that was, you could get $200 a year more on the salary scale as a high school teacher. He said, well, I think you ought to get a master's degree. And he said, there happens to be a job open in the agricultural engineering department for an instructor to teach mechanics. Well, I had been teaching mechanics in high school to the students. So I went over and applied and got that job. So in June of 1966, we moved back to Ames, Iowa.
But had you gotten your master's degree yet?
I started on my master's degree. And, but I had a job. I was an instructor, a full-time instructor in ag engineering, and I could go to school part-time. Well, actually, I got paid more as an instructor than I did as a high school teacher on the 9th step. So it was really a good thing for us to do. And I started going to school the first fall, and I was with a whole bunch of other guys back getting their master's degree, and they were working on their PhDs, and I was doing better than they were in classes. So I said, I've got a job. In fact, my job description said, you get a PhD, you get promoted to assistant professor and stay right there and work. So I said, okay, I'll get a PhD, and my advisor suggested it. So 7 years later, let's see, 1966 to 1971, 5 years later, I had a PhD. And became an assistant professor at Iowa State and stayed there. There were no jobs available when I graduated, but I had a job, so I stayed on. And 3 years later, a job came open I was teaching in agricultural engineering, and I had a minor in agricultural engineering, but I had a major in agricultural education. So a job came open in agriculture engineering at Oregon State, so I applied. We flew out and interviewed, and I got the job. So I started at Oregon State. In 1975, I started I had to go back I was an associate professor now at Iowa State. I had to go back, be assistant professor at Oregon State. And I did that, and things went well. And I made associate professor, and there came a job open in the dean's office for a head advisor for the college. And I had been awarded the outstanding teacher in the College of Agriculture twice. And so somebody stopped in and said I should apply for that job. So I I applied and I was assistant dean and head advisor and associate director of academic programs. That's a long title. But anyway, I was able to deal with students, and that's what I like best about that job.